So what if I told you there was a way to get your Sony FX3 looking footages to look and feel, I hate using the word, but it just feels cinematic. How you can get your grade to look to the final look with nice, beautiful skin tones, great contrast with just a few clicks of a button. And you not only that, but you can get raw controls from your internal files. So today I'm going to be talking about basically how you can do this with essentially a few different applications or plugins. All of them outside of essentially DaVinci Resolve is free. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. What's going on, everybody? My name is James Jackson. If you're new here, I do tips, tricks, news, and reviews for the film and video making industry. So if this is content that you like, definitely make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit that bell so you can stay up to date on all the content going forth. So as I mentioned at the top, there is a way, and I figured out a way to basically simplify the color grading and look process with Sony FX cameras. And I am really excited to share this with you guys. It's basically, once you have the two applications that you would need, one of them being DaVinci Resolve, and then this certain plugin, but it's not really a plugin, what is essentially called a DCTL, and I'll go more into that a little bit later on the video. Once you have these, pretty much you can get your Sony's looking great with just almost one node, almost to a finished look. So without further ado, let's get into it. First, let's go over what exactly will you need for this to work. The first thing you're going to need is DaVinci Resolve Studio. This will not work with the free version because of DCTLs. So you're going to need the Studio version. If you don't have it already, I can't stress enough, to me, DaVinci Resolve is the best in the software program. It's worth every penny of it. And if you want, you can get something like this, which is the speed editor. I believe if you still buy the speed editor, you will get Resolve Studio for free. But if that's not really well, you can also, especially if you're looking to really level up your color grading, you can get what is this, which is the micro color panel. I've actually done a review on this as well as the speed editors. If you're interested in how these guys work, I'll leave links to my review videos down in the description below. But if you buy either one of these, it does come with DaVinci Resolve for free. So you get a tool that will actually help you with your editing or your color grading, and you get Resolve Studio. So win-win there. The next thing you're going to have to get is Sony Catalyst Browse. Now, most of you probably are familiar with Sony Catalyst Browse through the stabilization. Well, what you may not know, particularly with DaVinci Resolve Studios, is that there was an update back in 18.5 where if you use XAVC or specifically XAVCI, you can actually get raw metadata controls on your cameras. This was something that since the Sony FX9 or the FX6 had natively in the cameras, basically that either one of those cameras, you can get raw controls if you shot XFAVCI. Since that codec is not on the FX30, the FX3, and the most recently FX2, this is one of the things that you're going to have to use Sony Catalyst Browse if you're going to use one of these. So if you're an FX6 or an FX9 user, you're good. If you're one of the other smaller cameras, you're going to need Sony Catalyst Browse. And the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to download it. You also are going to need to have the serial number and the exact name of the model that you're using. Now, you will be able to find this at the bottom of your camera. So if you have a cage, yes, you're going to have to take the cage off, find that, and then type it in to essentially register that you are an actual Sony owner. It sucks, but it comes with the territory. But once you do that, you shouldn't have to do this again. The next thing you got to do is basically find the files that you want to bring into DaVinci Resolve, that either from the card that you were recorded to, or any of the files that may be on an external drive. Anyways, you're going to bring the files in, and you're going to basically get ready to import them. And you can batch import, but the key thing that you should be aware of is that if you're going to batch, they have to be the exact same frame rate. So you can't batch 24 frame clips and 60 frame clips or 120 clips. You have to do 24 clips, 60 frame clips, 120 frame clips, all separately. But all the metadata is there, so you can sort of line them up and then just batch them out at once. But the key takeaway is you want to make sure that your color space is still slog3, S gamut 3.cine. But the more important thing is you want the file to convert to XAVCI. That's the main important thing. And then pretty much you can keep everything else the same. And then you hit batch and import, and then you are good to go. Also, quick side note, I did also interestingly notice that DJI is able to access and be able to convert their files in Catalyst Browse. I'm exploring that, but more on that in a different video. The next thing we are going to want to do is set up our project file or our timeline settings, as well as do something else that we're going to need for the DCTL, which is the third thing. But first, let's open up Davinci Resolve. We're going to go to our project setting. The key thing we're going to want to change is we're going to want to make sure that we're on YRGB, and we're going to be going through Davinci Y Gamut Intermediate as our color space. And we're going to set Rec 709 Gamma 2.4 as our display output, or at least whatever your display output. For mine, it's Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. So once we do that, we're going to go all the way to the bottom where there is a LUT folder. We're going to open that up. And then we're going to pause right here. And now we're going to go to the third thing that we need to do, which is the DCTL. So what is a DCTL? DCTL stands for Davinci Color Space Transform Language. Essentially, third-party people and color science specialists are able to create certain basically plugins that allow you to control multiple aspects of DaVinci Resolve or create codes that will work in DaVinci Resolve. This is the reason why you need Studio version, because DCTLs only work in DaVinci Resolve Studios. But the key thing we're going to be looking at is a specific DCTL called OpenDRT. Now, if you're probably wondering what is a DRT, DRT stands for DaVinci Resolve Transform. Long story short, it is the output display. So what we've probably known for most time is the color space transform that you take from whatever you're working with into your display, Rec 7, in this case, Rec 79 Gamma 2.4. So this is the output transform that basically, or what we called back in the film days, the print. That is essentially what the DRT is. I'm going to actually create a live stream this coming Thursday to basically demonstrate this specific DRT and some other DRTs, because as the more I've gotten used to DRTs, this thing has, I feel it's going to be a real game changer. So I'm going to have a live stream Thursday evening, 6 p.m. So definitely check out for that. Anyways, the main thing is we're going to use OpenDRT. Now, I have a link down in the description below, and I'm probably going to have a pop-up right around here or here somewhere where you can click the link to go to this specific one. This is completely free. You basically just go to this GitHub code. There's going to be a download portion that's going to have the DCTL. Now, if depending on what you're working with, this may be easier. If you're working on Mac, like me, I would just download it, put it in the downloads, and this is why we had that LUT page open. Because the thing is, you want to take it from wherever you downloaded, you want to drag it into the general or the main page of your LUT folder and drop it there. Once you do that, close out DaVinci Resolve so it can restart. It's going to reboot, and now you have the DCTL, in this case OpenDRT, in it. So now that we got that done, let's bring in those clips that we have transformed using Sony Catalyst Browse. We're going to drop them into a timeline, and we're going to go to all the way to the color tab to really see. The first thing I want you to notice is that the main reason why we're using Catalyst Browse is because if you go to the raw tab, even though we shot this in XAVCI original in 10-bit 422, as you will see, we actually have raw metadata control over our color space, our color science, our gamma. We can change our highlight, shadow, midtone. We can make all these metadata changes. Our white balance, what would be our ISO is exposure, so we can change that if we want to. All of that as if we were doing it in camera. And this is the beauty of the Sony RAW system with that XFAVCI being accessible. We can now use the RAW Develop tab. Now, this isn't 12-bit RAW. This is still a 10-bit 422 file, but we have control over the metadata of these Sony files. But the reason why we want to do this is because the main thing we want is that Davinci knows what we are dealing with. So with that, we're going to go to the timeline portion, which this will affect all of the clips that are in this timeline, including these Osmo Pocket 3 clips that I've put in here. I'll show what happens with them. But the key thing, let's watch what happens with the FX3 files. So we're going to make a node in the timeline. Let's open up DCTL, and we're going to look for OpenDRT, as we see right there. And immediately, boom. Essentially what is happening is that Davinci, because it knows what the camera, it has the metadata, it has the raw footage, so it knows what it's working with. And we already know, and we set the color space timeline as Davinci Wide Gamut. This DCTL, what's awesome about this DCTL, it's doing what color management would do in terms of simplifying the pipeline. But as you will see in the raw development tab, we still have control over our metadata. So we can change all of the things that we could change before, whereas if you went with Davinci Resolve Manage, this would typically be locked up. So we still have control over everything that we need, which is awesome. And what's great about this DCTL or this DRT is the fact that we can affect the tone mapping that we're here. So if things look like it's making everything blowing out and everything, we can change the HDR so its tone mapping is a little bit better. But the key thing that I really love about this DRT is the fact that there's certain presets in there. One is colorful, which it will give a very vibrant and varied look. But on top of that, there's also these different tonalities. Like we got aces. There's a couple other ones. The one that I love the most is the Marvelous Tone Scale. I believe that's the name of it. This basically creates this beautiful it's a very contrasty tone map, but it makes all the colors deep, especially if you have that colorful preset. This makes it so much better. It's so much, you get this beautiful tonality, and this is probably my favorite, but you can play around with that. And also you got different white points. So instead of the standard D65, you can go with D55, and then you can also still make adjustments there. And this is why I love it. It helps you get that final look so much easier. And I really, really love it. And given the fact that we have those raw controls, we can then make white balance controls like we were actually still doing it in camera, and we're not, while not degrading the image. Anyways, this is it for me, guys. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. If you have any further questions about this whole process, let me know. Leave your comments down below. And as always, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, take care, everyone.